Hi and welcome to the second part of the lecture Supervision and Practice. The second part is on the topic independence in essay writing and the supervisor's actions. My name is Saadet Karimi, and here is the second part, independence in essay writing and the supervisor's actions. Well, independence in essay writing and the supervisor's actions. The concepts of independence in higher education is of great importance to examine in more detail how central concepts in higher education are used and understood in their context. Since this plays a decisive role in how higher education is shaped and created at its various levels. The Higher Education Ordinance of Sweden, the university's most comprehensive governing document, states that independence is such a central concept which plays a major role in how higher education is organized and implemented. It states, among other things, that basic education shall, in addition to knowledge and skills, give students the ability to make independent and critical assessments, the ability to solve problems independently, and the ability to follow the development of knowledge, all within the area to which the education relates. Here, the italic style you see is my emphasis. Here, it's that both assessments and problem solving that the students, after completing the education, should be able to do independently. How such overall goals are to be operationalized and achieved in practice is then formulated in education plans, where the provisions of the Higher Education Ordinance are broken down and specified. There too, independence is consequently found as a goal for the education. As in the following example, I'm going to give from an education plan for a teacher education program where there are several independence goals, one of which points toward a work process, and another example points toward reflective ability. So the student must demonstrate the ability to independently and together with others plan, implement, evaluate, and develop teaching and the pedagogical activities in general with the aim of stimulating each student's learning and development in the best way. Critically and independently systematize and reflect on their own experiences and relevant research results, and thereby contribute to the development of professional activities in primary school. Similarly, the concept of independence is commonly found in the learning objectives formulated in syllabi, not least in syllabi for courses that include essay writing and independent work. A review of 50 different syllabi for essay courses from various higher education institutions in Sweden, which we conducted in 2016, showed, for example, that the concept of independence appeared a total of 292 times in the analyzed syllabi. This means that independence recurred on average almost 6 times in each syllabi. So independence appears in different ways in the syllabi and is linked to objects like independent analysis, processes which are reviewing and assessing independently, or other comparable concepts like requirements for independence, complexity, and reflection. For example, independence can be described as a process where, after completing the course, the student should be able to independently discuss, evaluate, and identify various phenomena, as in the following example. Independently discuss problems and critically process source material and historical interpretations. So the ability to independently identify and evaluate the role of knowledge in society from a pedagogical perspective with an intercultural focus. Yeah. So how a concept is linked to other concepts can tell us something about how the concept is understood and what function it has. In the course syllabi, we examine it. For example, it's clear that it's above all the concept of critical, that's most often related to the concept of independence. It's also clear that the concept of independence is often linked to the text itself, either the entire work, the essay, or specific parts of the essay, such as the method, the research questions, the statement or purpose, etc. Sometimes it's instead about the writing process, where processes such as searching, processing, applying, implementing, and presenting are used in relation to independence. In other cases, independence is linked to other activities within the course, such as ventilating and opposing essays or seminar discussions. In summary, the use of independence in the course syllabi thus indicates that there is a large variation in which both process and product are linked to independence, and where both writing activities and other activities are linked to independence. Hmm. After the concepts of the Higher Education Ordinance have been broken down into curriculum and course syllabi, these perspectives and formulations concerning independence are also broken down into formulations in study manuals and grading criteria. Also, course syllabi are the lowest level of legally binding documents. Course documents such as grading criteria and instructions in study manuals govern how courses are designed and implemented in practice. Formulations around independence in such documents can point both towards the text and towards the process, as in the following example from a study manual. Be able to independently review and assess the scientific work. Is a discussion of the results independent and thought-provoking? Compared to the BSA, you should now be able to be more critical and reason independently when it comes to, for example, identifying and interpreting. The text is characterized by independence and reflection that goes into depth. The essay should be characterized by independence in relation to the literature and sources used. Uh, yeah, it was an example for study manual for CSA in history. There are also grading criteria that are based on independence as a separate dimension. or differentiate between different grade levels. Level pass, some independence in theory, choice, method, and discussion, ability to assimilate feedback and supervision. Pass with discussion, with distinction. The investigation is a result of an independent way of solving a research problem. Ability to further develop supervision and feedback in relation to writing independent work. And here next subtract from the study manual for independent work in primary teacher education with a focus on grades 1 to 3. In this example, it becomes clear that it's not only the finished text that's ultimately assessed in relation to independence, but also how the supervision has functioned and how the student has related to what the supervisor has recommended. In study manuals or manuals or course guides, there may be explanatory reasoning about how independence should be understood in this particular context. In the following two examples from study manuals, what's referred to as a quality dimension is explained first and foremost, where many aspects of independence are included. Let's see. Example 1, the independence dimension. The further you get in your education, the greater the demands placed on the second overall quality dimension, the ability to demonstrate an independent approach to literature, method, material, and your own analysis. This is about the ability to formulate an original scientific problem or a research question through which new knowledge is created. It's also about the ability to critically examine the literature and sources, being able to relate different authors, traditions, and approach to each other, and the ability to reflect on your own work, choice of material or data, methods for collection and analysis, empirical and theoretical results. This is expressed, among other things, in the ability to distance yourself from your own study and be able to insert your work into a tradition. Against such a background, you can discover new questions and formulate new hypotheses. It's often this dimension, especially at higher levels of education, that determines the differences between grades passed and passed with distinction. In this explanatory reasoning, the independence dimension is broken down into a number of activities that are linked to independence. So showing attitudes, formulating problems, reviewing literature, and reflecting on and distancing oneself from one's own work, you see. Example 2, you will work in the second example. There is first a description of the work process when writing an essay, and then an explanation of how independence should be understood in that context. Let's see. You will work very independently, individually, and or in pairs. Within the framework of the thesis work, you will be faced with complicated problems to which you are expected to find independent solutions. Independence here means, firstly, that you have an independent way of relating to your problem area, and secondly, that you are responsible for and plan your work process. Here, it's the student's approach to the problem area that's linked to independence, as well as the student's responsibility for planning the work. All these examples from different levels of the activity and from different subjects exemplify how the concept of independence is used frequently, but at the same time is quite diffuse, points in different directions, and can differ between different contexts. In reviewing the syllabi, it also becomes apparent that independence is used together with other concepts such as critical thinking and independence or autonomy. Sometimes they are used synonymously, and sometimes the concepts are superior or subordinate to each other. According to Wittgenstein, and his study from 1958, this is neither unusual nor unexpected. He launched the idea of family resemblance when he believes that it wasn't possible or even desirable to find unambiguous definitions of central concepts since language does not work that way. All concepts, he believes, Wittgenstein believes, have a variety of different meanings and nuances of meaning based on how the concepts are used in different contexts. What Wittgenstein calls family uh, resemblance is precisely about how different concepts are connected to each other in many different ways in a complicated network. This fits well with the relationships between concepts such as independence, critical thinking, and autonomy, where the concepts have clear similarities and overlaps, but where there are also differences. Um, the concept of independence can be said to include critical thinking as one of several criteria, but at the same time appears as one of several criteria for critical thinking. The concepts thus exhibit, in addition to their applicability and flexibility, also a kind of duality. Let's see, independence includes relating to sources, taking initiative, and critical thinking. At the same time, critical thinking includes, among other things, independence. So, yeah, also the concept of independence is used frequently and has great importance. It's not obvious what independence means in different contexts. This is natural when it comes to how language works. But in an educational context, where the concept of independence is associated with abilities that are to be taught and assessed based on governing documents and grading criteria, there is still a need to make it visible and explicit, and if possible, create a consensus on how it should be understood. Yes, so let's see a metric to accept challenges. As mentioned, autonomy is one of many concepts related to the supervision of independent work. As we have shown, it's a concept that is ambiguous and can be understood in many different ways, sometimes overlapping and sometimes fundamentally different. According to the supervisor's interview with autonomy can be manifested in different phases. from planning one's essay work, searching for literature and writing, to submitting the finished text, that say the product. There are also differences in perceptions of where autonomy can be found in the brain, the text, speaking or doing, or in the process or in the product. The concept can also be described as relative, as the supervisors don't talk about autonomy as something that students have or don't have, but about the fact that autonomy can occur at different levels and different from an equivalence perspective and the legal certainty perspective. It can be problematic if different teachers, departments, or higher education institutions use excessively different definitions and criteria when conducting supervision and when examining essays. In other words, there may be a need for a collegial discussion where supervisors' different perceptions of independence can be made explicit and visible in order to be discussed and compared with those of others. In such a collegial discussion, the matrix we present in the table here can serve as support. In the table, we have compiled along one axis the different perceptions of independence that emerged in our material. Yeah, so and along the other axis, the different contexts or phases in which independence was described emerge. During the supervision process, in the finished essay text, or during the ventilation. We want to emphasize that process and product, that's to say the finished text, here don't function as opposites, but as different parts of or perspective of perspectives on one and the same competence. According to some supervisors, the process or parts of it can also be identified in the finished product. Here is a table. You see, to take initiative, to demonstrate originality, creativity, and enthusiasm, relating to sources, to argue, motivate, and choose, taking responsibility, to demonstrate critical thinking and reflection, to generalize and synthesize. So all these phases here's different, all this autonomy, the grade of autonomy can occur different under the different parts of the working process. The fielding process indicate how the different contexts were made relevant by the supervisors in the focus group discussions. But this is, of course, open to discussion in colleges that work with thesis, supervision, and examination, and high schools. As can be seen from the matrix, several aspects of independence can be identified both during the process, in the finished text, and during the ventilation. At the same time, it's difficult to reflect on how many aspects of independence can be related to the thesis process itself, and then indirectly to the supervisor and what he or she enables, opens up for, identifies, or what supervisor assesses in his or her supervision practice. Well, from the academic literacy perspective, it's emphasized how higher education is characterized by different epistemologies and norm systems. That means that what is perceived as valuable and good varies within different local academic contexts, that's institutions and subjects. The autonomy matrix that we present here is a typical example of this. Um, so this matrix is a typical uh, example of this academic literacy perspective. So where the starting point is that there are no better or worse criteria, and there is no criterion that's the right one that everyone should relate to. Here, it's instead about trying to put existing epistemological norms into words as a supervisor, and then a model of this kind can be something to take a stand against. Mm. And that was all for this time. Good luck. See you later.